it takes a lot of mental toughness to finish a race like this. So all of those athletes out there, you guys, everybody, it takes a lot of mental grit to just keep going, transitioning in and out of the water, and not quitting.
Welcome to the Low Tide Boys, a Swimrun podcast. I'm Chip.
And I'm Chris, and this is episode 148 of the show. We have something special for this week's programming. Joining us in Studio G is the amazing obstacle course racing, ultramarathon running, CrossFit Games competing, Swimrun World Championship finishing, and all around just kind of like amazing human being, Katie Knight. Her story of how she got to ÖTILLÖ and raced with the one and only Nicolas Remires is amazing, and we're stoked to share it with all of you.
But first, training update. So it is race week, officially. It's here.
Yeah.
Maybe even by the time you're listening at this, we're already on the plane going to Austin and making our way to Paceman Park for the last swim run of the year, which is Ödyssey Swimrun Austin.
Yep.
Third year in a row.
We've done every one. Still time to register. So head on over, sign up there, and use the code LOWTIDEBOYS15. Save 15% off that registration, too. Hope to see you all there. Yeah, if anyone is listening to this and signing up, let us know when you show up at the race. We want to know who you are. I
just listened to your last episode, and
we want to know who you are.
If you're holding it till last minute, the time to shine is now.
Definitely.
To register for Ödyssey Austin. We'll see you there multiple times. But first, on to this week's shout-outs.
Yeah, so this shout-out didn't wait till the last minute. So this week's shout-out goes to Braden Bell. He reached out to us earlier in the year to let us know that he's listening to our show and he's training for Swimrun and was going to be Ödyssey Austin, Paceman Park. So answered some emails. He was even an early beneficiary of the LTBz Gear Loan Program. He has one of our suits because he's like, hey, what do you think? I'm like, hey, what size are you? We have a bunch of suits here.
Hopefully a medium or large.
Yeah, hopefully small, tall to medium to large is what we got. And he's lining up in Austin, so we're super stoked for him. Looking forward to meeting him in person, and we know that he and we will have a blast this weekend.
Absolutely. Now for this week's feats of endurance. So this week's winner is friend of the pod, Brooke Fallon. She ran the Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C. over the weekend and finished with a great time. You can learn more about Brooke by listening to our episode 114 of the show, where we were interviewing Brooke and her daughter, Samantha, a.k.a. the Team Fearless Fallons.
Yeah. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon, I think, in 2017.
I will say it's the worst race shirt I've ever seen.
Oh, my God. Remember I sent you that picture, and you're like, what is this garbage? No.
It was too bad.
Yeah, it was like, and it was like a mock shirt, but the course was amazing. Hit all the spots. It's a great race.
Is there a bunch of like Marines that run it in their boots and all that kind of stuff?
There's all that stuff. There's also like at the finish line, there's just like Marines are giving you medals and stuff. And there's 1 mile, I forget which mile it was, but it was like super depressing mile, which they call it the blue mile. And it was like basically like fallen soldiers and like their families were holding pictures of them, and you're just like running.
You're like, okay.
It was intense. It was like, damn.
That's a lot to deal with.
It was definitely like, damn, that's yeah, but great race.
Anyway, congrats, Brooke, on your marathon finish. And be sure to head on over to Strava, search Low Tide Boys, and join all the fun over there. Get some kudos, receive some kudos, and all sorts of stuff. Now over to the news desk for this week in Swimrun.
All right, we got a short one for everyone this week, but first, we're doing the first in like a extremely ad hoc new installment called Understanding Global Cultures. So I haven't told you the story, but I'm just going to tell it now because friend of the show, John, Concho Boy himself, he's in San Francisco, and he happened to be on a sailboat for some reason doing some stuff. And there was a Swedish person on the boat, and there was an Italian person on the boat. So he goes to the Swedish person. It's like, so we're going to do this event tomorrow. Let's have a fika. And the Italian guy goes, "What?" He's like, "Oh, we'll make sure that it's good fika." And he was like, "Excuse me?" So apparently, but I don't know if anyone knows this, and probably do, but in Italian, fika is a euphemism for female sex organ.
Oh.
So when John is talking about good fika, this guy's like, so
wow.
So moral of the story, again, a part of this cultural understanding segment is if you're speaking to an Italian, make sure you say Swedish fika. I don't know if that'll actually be helpful, but
that might make it worse.
But just so you know, if you're talking to Italians and you're talking about fika, you got problems.
You might get a look.
You might be offending people. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure everyone feels comfortable. But special message to Sebastian, aka the Radberg. He has a shirt on his site that just says fika on it.
Oh,
maybe you don't sell that one in Italy, or do? I mean, I don't know, but
whatever you do,
just food for thought for everyone out there.
That's good to know. That's really good to know.
I mean, I'm glad I know that.
We're ready for Italy, and the Swimrun Shakeout will just feature an espresso.
Yeah. Pastries.
Back
to normally scheduled updates. Swimrun Man recently announced the dates for their 2023 events. They'll be hosting 3 events in France, and all offer multiple distance options and merit race distances and points. And they're all in epic locations. You guys know all that already, and we would love to do them all. But alas, here we are. Speaking of ÖTILLÖ, they are hosting their final race of the year this weekend in the island of Malta. If you want to learn more about this race, check out episode 98 for a race recap show with one of our favorite teams/humans, Bronwyn and Greg of the Boston Red Sox. That was a super fun episode, I thought.
That was great. That's when they won the mixed division.
First American team to win an ÖTILLÖ division.
World Series race.
Yeah.
Nice.
Finally, are you looking to upgrade your swimmer and paddle game? It's mostly a rhetorical question because obviously you want to upgrade your swimmer and paddle, your swim paddle game. Make sure you head over to frankpaddle.com to pre-order a set of their new pro paddles. We love these paddles and love the attention to detail that goes into every single set. Need more an incentive? Also, slightly rhetorical question. Everyone who places a pre-order will be entered to a drawing to win a set of paddles that have been custom painted by us, the Low Tide Boys.
From our meetup with Frederic in Stockholm.
Yeah, so we think that someone might want these, but they were done by us. We think that Frederic and everything that he's doing over there at Frank Paddle is great, and we love these paddles. You should check them out.
Absolutely.
That's it for this week. Feel free to reach out and let us know if there's anything you'd like for us to mention on the show.
Now for a little bit of show business. So, you may have heard earlier, we're doing Ödyssey Swimrun Austin. So
I think we might have mentioned it, yeah.
We did touch on it. So join us at Paceman Park for a little Low Tide Boys, Wild Swim Run, Team Adorkable Shakeout Swim Run, and Swedish Fika. Saturday, November 5th at 11 a.m. at Camp Tex Lake. It's right where the pack-up picket is and near the start-finish line for Sunday's race. If you haven't reviewed the course mandatory race briefing, there is no, the water levels are really low this year, so there's no cliff jumps to be had, so we won't be partaking in any of that, but it'll be a really good time for you to see some of the new rock kind of scrambling features on the swim exits and entrances and really feel out the water for yourself. So come join the Low Tide Boys and more for a little 45-minute no-drop, chill swim run. Bring your new gear questions, bring your buoys, whatever you want. We're happy to help. And we'll see you at 11 a.m. at Camp Tex Lake. Also, when you drive into the park, just let them know you're with the race, and they won't make you pay for the fees. Now, on to this week's interview with Katie Knight.
Yeah, it was really great to chat with Katie. As we mentioned at the beginning, she's an amazing athlete and pretty much a great ambassador for everything that she does. In this conversation, we discussed her vast athletic background, what the world's toughest mudder entails.
The ultra one.
The ultra one?
Yeah.
The toughest.
It's the toughest.
The toughest. And how she found herself at the start line of ÖTILLÖ, the Swimrun World Championship in early September. She was featured in this year's Hype movie, so make sure you check that out to get even more details of her swimrun journey. But I thought this was super inspiring, and it was great to learn more about her and all the awesome stuff she's doing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, super phenomenal athlete all the way starting from high school, what was she? Four varsity letter. Just incredible athlete all around, and to hear about all the really awesome endurance things that she's doing is cool, and that we got to chat with her a little bit at ÖTILLÖ, but for someone that was her first swim run experience, massively impressed.
Yeah, she did great
on how she did
great.
there with.
If you're a big Nicolas Remires fan like we are, just a lot of great little tips, little factoids of what it's like to race with him.
Yeah. Yeah, because not everyone's going to get the experience to race with Coach Nico of Onvold there.
That's right.
Yes, but without further ado, we won't belabor this into a ultra distance Tough Mudder outro here. But here is our conversation with Katie Knight.
All right, with us today, we have Katie Knight, who there's so many questions that we have for you, but we might as well start where we met you, which was at ÖTILLÖ, the Swimrun World Championship, about a month ago. I guess first question is, how did that come about?
Yeah, so I find it like a joy to find a bunch of endurance races, like hopefully like the hardest in the world that I can go and do and challenge myself. And so that one came about. A friend had done it before, and he wanted to do it together. And so we were going to go over there and do it, but it fell through. So then I contacted, the race director, and I was like, hey, I'm still trained up. I really want to go do this race still. Do you have a partner for me? And matter of fact, they had Nico, which was like, perfect person to do it with for the first time.
I mean,
it all just lined up pretty well. I went over there, met you guys, a bunch of other amazing people and athletes, and just had a blast. It was a truly incredible experience from start to finish.
I mean, having Nico as your partner, I don't know. That's what we call in the business, just like stepping in shit, because you basically got like the best possible person that you could potentially.
You got hooked up.
It was a major
for sure.
So we're
his partner couldn't do it anymore either. So it was like, it's just like, it lined up well.
It's great. So we're definitely going to talk more about Swimrun, but now that we have that initial question out of the way, because I've just been wanting to ask you that for about a month. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You're an amazing athlete, world's toughest mudder, world champion last year. I had to look up what that was, and it's just as ridiculous as it sounds. But tell us a little about yourself, your background, and kind of like what's your deal?
Yeah, so I'm like an endurance hybrid athlete. So a lot of events that combine strength and endurance. So you have like obstacle course races with like World's Toughest Mudder. I previously just won Go Ruck Games, which is something new as well, but that uses strength and endurance. Mm-hmm. My background, I grew up playing every sport possible. I was a 4-sport varsity athlete. I played ice hockey in college.
Wow.
And then from there, I got really deep into the CrossFit scene, trained for that for quite a few years. And then kind of switched over into the ultramarathon world, which is a weird switch, but a bunch of friends of mine were doing the rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon. And I was like, hey, that sounds cool. 50 miles, just a shit ton of elevation. Let's do it. I had never run more than a half at that point. So I trained myself up, went and did the rim to rim to rim in about like 14 hours, which is not too shabby. And then from there, I was kind of hooked. So I did a bunch more 50-mile ultra marathons. And then I started last year. Yeah, so I'm officially done with my rookie year of like Spartan racing, obstacle course racing. I did my first one last September, my first ultra, so 30 miles, like 60 obstacles. And then I did 24-hour races back to back, like 2 months apart. And I've been hooked ever since. I love it. I really like the long, grueling stuff. You guys know it's basically what swimrun is. That's basically me in a nutshell for my background, at least. Well,
now I see why ÖTILLÖ tickled you so much, why you had to get in and do it. So before that, how did kind of swimrun come on your radar?
Yeah, like I said, it was just a buddy of mine who had done it prior.
Friend of a friend kind of thing.
And I have a couple big ultras this fall, 24-hour races, and I'm like, that's great training for it. I know I'm going to have to get in the pool a little bit more definitely a lot more now that I know. But so yeah, I really wanted to do it. It's an incredible race. I looked up a lot about it, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I was like, that's a really just special thing to go do. So
yeah, I mean, so let's talk about it, because it was our first time doing it, and we consider ourselves we consider ourselves like the chief evangelists of swim run for like this hemisphere.
Self-appointed North America residents.
For us going there,
I'll join the team.
Exactly.
Welcome. You're welcome to.
So for us going over there, I mean, this race was almost mythological, right? But I'm curious, from did you kind of get that vibe, like, oh my God, this is a really unique thing, when you were training for it and watching the videos, and I'm curious if that sort of matched your impression of it when you showed up.
Definitely. I mean, videos can never do like anything in person justice.
Yeah.
So getting over there and I've never been to Sweden. I've been a lot of other places in Europe, but never there. And it literally was like a magical place. Like that first night before they ferry us over, just the coast, everything about it was incredible. And training up for it, there was definitely like I said, it's always been like, it looked special. I really wanted to do it. I only really go and do things that like I find special. And so like watching the videos, it was a little nerve wracking too, because I knew how much swimming was going to be involved, and I swam in high school, but not a ton since. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if you guys talk to their athletes about how much they train for swimming. They're like, oh yeah, we put in, like over an hour, like 4 or 5 times a week. And I was like, oh, okay. And they're like, what about you? And I was like, yeah, 30 minutes here and there.
Here and there.
So like, it was a little nerve wracking. I thought maybe that I might drown and Nico might have to, drag me along, but it all turned out okay. But yeah, the whole experience in general was just phenomenal.
Yeah, awesome. And you really got a treat with Coach Nicolas from Onvol there. And you all were also, I guess, featured in the ÖTILLÖ 42-minute documentary as well. So if you want to follow along, you can have that running in the background if you haven't seen it 4 or 5 times like Chris and I.
That was so fun. We got a lot of FaceTime too, which was exciting.
That was great. And we actually, I think the day before you arrived, we had our own little special training session with Coach Nico as well. I think even where he might have taken you the day after, and we were saying, we were asking about it. He goes, yeah, I don't know what the trails are like in Colorado, but I know she can run, but it'll be a fun day. Yeah. That's what I remember him telling us. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure you'll have a good time out there. I'm like, Colorado, yeah, they can handle most things. Throw at them.
Although I'll tell you something, like we were running on these trails and I was just like, do they ever like maintain them? Like, cut branches out of the way, things like that. And he goes, what does that mean? And I was like, come to Colorado and I'll show you what kind of trails we run on. It's not this.
Yeah.
Like that was some of the most technical, rocky, just like a mess of a trail. Like, I don't know how you guys navigated it. I was obviously just being, pulled by him the whole time, and he knew every single step of the course. So I don't know how that was for you guys trying to find the trail.
It was head on a swivel.
It was a challenge. I mean, we were doing just as good as you were, basically. Well, actually, worse than you were doing.
Way worse. I had a guide.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what part? That race has definitely a bunch of features that make it really unique as a sort of an endurance challenge. But what was kind of the hardest part for you, where you kind of were like, okay, well, this is super hard, but it's not 24-hour Tough Mudder hard. But okay, this is when I got to put my head down and go.
Yeah, I mean, for the long swim, for sure, I just kind of had to put my head down. I was told I could only look at the rope in between, and that was it. And so that was my goal. So the first mile swim was pretty gnarly, because it felt like a ton of like a school of fish just like fighting for food. Mm-hmm. Like we sprinted to the water, and then you just have people to the right and to the left. And, I was in the back, so people were literally swimming up my legs, and you'd have to like kick them off. And I was getting hit with paddles. So that's something I've never experienced before. So that I really had to just put my head down and swim. And then the pig swim was also pretty brutal. I'm glad the water wasn't any more rough than it was. That felt even longer than the mile swim, So those were the times I really just had to put my head down and grind. And then, getting to the start of that 10-mile island after doing all that rocky terrain and in the shoes that like I've never worn that minimal of shoes for trails before. So my feet and ankles were pretty beat up. And then to run flat on pavement for the majority of that 10-mile run, that's when I had to, even as a runner, I had to put my head down and be like, all right, we're going to have to make it through this somehow.
Yeah. I mean,
those three were like big challenges.
It was definitely the same for us on that run. In fact, we were talking to our coach afterwards and we're like, you know, we probably should have put in more kind of like road miles because we were doing pretty much everything exclusively on trails. But yeah, like the minimal shoes, but you kind of need to have grip and your footing on the super technical stuff.
You need to feel what you're running. You need to be able to have foot feel.
So you can't wear like giant Hokas or something because I mean, that just seems problematic.
Yeah, I'm used to running in pretty like burly mountain running shoes like Brooks and stuff. And then I had like Sauconys that were like super thin. And yeah, after like I had been doing training up on trail, but then a ton on road because I knew it was going to be pretty flat. And the trails I have here, you have to climb a lot. And so I was even, you know, working on road. So don't worry, that wasn't it. It was just like going from that like really technical to just flat, but like what took a toll on my feet and my ankles. But you also have to have those thin shoes to swim because I tried swimming in my mountain shoes and like my feet felt like they were bricks. So I was like, okay, I have to get something thinner.
Yeah, those things seem like they definitely would take on quite a bit of water, especially if when a 1600 swim, you're probably in there for a bit. I like how Coach Nico just brought you right to the thick of it for the first swim pack, just right in the middle of everything, going for full gas on it. Obviously, you've done some really, really, truly impressive endurance stuff, longer and more burly. But a lot of that is kind of solo. I love to kind of hear how you experienced it. You know, I know Coach Nico was just like a golden retriever right off the front, pulling you along the whole time. But how did you like doing an endurance event with the partner aspect versus sort of your solo or your other endurance endeavors, which are usually solo?
Yeah, I'm used to mostly solo races. Like I would say majority of everything I've done has been solo. So having a teammate and a partner, I really liked it. My background is in team sports, and there's not a lot that I did as a solo athlete back in the day. So I was kind of fun to have that like teammate to, work off each other on strengths, weaknesses, and then, just to have him there as a support system too was just incredible. Like he was a big part of the reason that I didn't want to quit or give up. And for like you said, we really did push for probably the first at least half of the race because I think he knew that we could do pretty well. And so we kept very hard paces the entire time. I don't know what your transitions at aid stations were like, but mine, I had like 30 seconds. I was like, okay, but my shoes aren't tied. He's like, okay, I'll tie one, you tie the other. And I was like, no, I'll tie both shoes and we'll just take a minute. Like I need a minute. So, but yeah, it was just, I really enjoyed it. And I think that's something that's really special about Swimrun is that you have a partner. And that's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, again, like having Nico as your partner, I mean, this guy is just like an encyclopedia of swimrun knowledge. And also on that course, I mean, he's raced it like 6 or 7 times, podiumed once.
I think this was number 8.
8?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think so.
Impressive.
It's crazy. Now, when you guys are going through the terrain, how much is he sort of coaching you up kind of in the moment or preparing you for what's coming up? I mean, because his knowledge of the course, he knows it like the back of his hand. Like, I'm just curious, like, what was its experience kind of racing with him? What was that like? Yeah,
he's done it, 8 times or so. And then he's also led like training camps through certain portions of that course. And so I knew what was coming up every 5 minutes. So now we're going to do this. Now we're going to do that. And I was just like, that's great. Like, that's what I told him initially. It was like, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So it was all coaching on the fly. It was like, okay, get out of the water and come this way. Be safe. Like the whole entire time. The only thing that was hard is he'd be like, in so many kilometers. And I was like, I don't know what that means. So he spent the whole time. Now he knows how to convert it very quickly. But he did take a lot of time to during the race to tell me, okay, this many kilometers and this many miles. And so I kind of got the gist of it too, but that was very helpful.
That's great. I mean, and it's like, I'm sure again, you're partnered with this coach, and you're like, oh yeah, I know about this guy. You show up at the race, and there's, what were they calling them? The Blue Army?
Yeah, Blue Army, I think.
Envoy,
the
Envoy Army.
So many blue people.
So many people.
Yep.
Really, really impressive.
Yeah, I got a blue shirt too. Which was fun.
Nice. Oh, you're in the Army now too.
I am in the Army
now. You're part of the U.S.
Not by choice. I just was like thrown in there. Like, you're part of the team.
No questions.
Yep.
Yep. Awesome. That race, and I think if you haven't watched tons of YouTube videos about it or understood the terrain, you kind of might just look at it and think, 40 miles of running on trails. Oh, I've done ultra, I've done a 50 miler, I've done whatever, 130K, whatever.
Yep.
Seems kind of doable. I think one thing that really surprised me was how dynamic you have to be. It's not up and down like a trail run. You're hopping over logs, you're ducking under stuff, you're going under branches. I feel like what you do as a hybrid athlete,
probably the easy part for her,
probably was like just right up your alley. Was that just like you felt super in the zone for those tree dodging and the log dodging?
Oh yeah, it felt like an obstacle race where you had to go this way, that way. What I was just not used to was it felt like we were just like on the East Coast, like running literally along the coast the whole time with how many like just rocks and like huge boulders to go up and over. Because when we do trail races or obstacle course races, it's not necessarily like that. There's still a trail, and like you might have like man-made obstacles or some branches and stuff to jump over. But the whole like coastal running rocks technical part, that was tricky. And I'm sure you guys know, just like getting in and out of the water and transitioning, that was pretty crazy. That was a first for me.
It's unlike anything that we've done. That was our 11th swim run. Good thing someone's thing someone's paying attention on here. And we feel like, okay, we kind of got the transition thing. Like, we're not fumbling over it every single time. We sort of have it down, and then you go there and it's like, whoa, everything's totally different somehow, even though it is sort of familiar, and you got that little bit of time to kind of warm up to it now. Little learning. Well,
and you guys then are experienced with running in wetsuits, so I've never ran that far in a wetsuit. And I got hooked up with like all the the ARC, all the great gear and stuff, but that was definitely different and new for me. And then just like the rubbing on my neck too. Like I walked away and I was going through the airport and I was like, oh my gosh, people either thought like I got strangled or got in a fight with a vacuum or you never know what. But it was just like, this is crazy. But it was, as I looked around that next morning, tons of people had it. So I was like, okay, this is like a, warrior.
Yeah, it's
warrior
like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
It's like people limping after a marathon with like their little,
bag.
reflective.
I always just say it's like curling iron burn.
Oh yeah. I could have gone with that. It lasted quite a while on one side, and I was like, oh gosh.
Yeah, definitely does. And what was one of our we get neck burns all the time, but our friend Adrian gave us a special what was that?
2 Toms?
No, it was some cream that it helped it. Like Neosporin basically.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. We'll affiliate link in the show notes.
Yeah, he'll research that and send you a DM.
Perfect. Do you guys have another swim run coming up?
We do. We're headed over to North Carolina for Swimrun NC. So we'll be racing with Marcus and Kavika, who are part of the Onville Army.
We're also featured in the video.
They were also featured, your co-stars in the Ötyllö video.
Yep. And are you guys doing the Austin one?
We're also doing the Austin one, which is also, I might note, it is close to Colorado.
That's the one I'm looking to jump into.
That's what I like what I hear.
Fun. It's super fun. You don't even need to train up for it. You can just show up and do it.
Oh, perfect.
It's great.
That's perfect because that's exactly what I did last time.
Well, and it's like
shorter.
because there are because there aren't that many swim runs in the US. It's like we try to just almost for just content for the show. We feel like we got to do all these races, and we really enjoy doing them. I guess it's probably the primary reason.
Well, and you're the North American hemisphere.
Exactly. Yeah, it's part of being
so
chief evangelist. Yeah, it's true.
Yep,
it's true. Yeah, and Ödyssey puts on awesome events, and we've done that race every year. Well, they've done it twice, but we've done it every year.
2 for 2.
And it's a great way to end the year and super fun.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's not as cold. Although I was impressed that I was expecting to get into just like ice cold water. And I didn't feel, and it was because, they'd had a warmer summer, so the water temperature was better, but I was very thankful for that. I was like, oh, thank goodness.
Yeah. I mean, we were lucky in that
we got
respect,
spoiled
for sure. Yeah. The last
Yeah.
time it was that nice was 2018, and that was just like the last year that records like really fell. But even though last year the men's record fell and the women's, but yeah, I think I kind of was a little bummed out, a little tiny bit bummed out that it wasn't sort of your classic ÖTILLÖ, dark clouds, some chop, stuff like
the storm,
that. Rain.
When they showed that, or when I saw a video of that, I was like, oh my gosh, if it's like that, I will drown. Like, oh my gosh, please don't let it be like that. That's what I mean. Like
a little bit was like, that would have been like the real OG experience, but it's like, hey, you have to race with whatever conditions you have, and happen to be a glorious day. So
I wasn't bummed at all. I was good.
That's what I was telling him at the end. I'm like, this was hard enough. We don't need to add some crazy weather stuff on top of it. Maybe next year.
Exactly. I was prepared for just a mission of a day.
Yeah.
And so with no other, aspects to worry about, I was like, all right, we can do this.
Nice. So it sounds like you got a little bit of the swim run bug. I mean, it's hard not to catch it after 10 hours in the very, amazing part of the world. At the source of swim run.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you, I'm curious if you're going to take anything that you learned from your ÖTILLÖ experience and apply it to your other endurance endeavors?
I mean, I think it was definitely one of the most brutal races I've ever done. Like even the 24-hour ones, it just, like I said, there's a ton of different aspects, like the technical terrain, the swimming, just, putting my head down and having to grind away for 9.5 hours at what I felt like was a very hard pace. I'm definitely going to take that into my ultras, into my 24-hour races and stuff as just, another layer of mental grit to pull out when I need. Like if I can make it, 5 point whatever miles in open water swimming, I can do this. And so it's definitely going to be something I put in my arsenal to pull out when I need for some mental strength.
Well, I'd like to ask you a little bit about that because, I mean, from everything from your athletic resume, it seems like mental strength is something that, almost even more than your physical strength and prowess. It's like you have to be mentally super strong to do the things that you've done. How have you sort of developed that mindset and like you just said, it's like, oh, I'm going to put this into my toolkit. That toolkit has to be like a deluxe,
supersized.
Yeah, many tools in that toolbox or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, kind of like, how's that developed for you?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's definitely taken time and a lot of grueling events to develop that. And it's always been, ever since I was young, just a no quit attitude. So I don't know if you saw the last ultra I did. I just did 2 back-to-back 50Ks. And actually my toenails from swim run my big toenails were pretty beat up. Just over the course of being wet, rubbing in those shoes I never wear, things like that. And so going into these 50Ks, I was a little concerned. And then by the end of the last one, the medics actually took them off. So I ran with basically detached toenails for about 27 miles the last day. Oof. And so
I saw
things
the video.
like that kind of build up that mental grit and toughness. And, as I said before, it's just what I can do. And what that comes down to is more so people's minds than their bodies. I don't know if you heard of my quote at the beginning of this swim run documentary is it takes a lot of mental toughness to finish a race like this. So all of those athletes out there, you guys, everybody, it takes a lot of mental grit to just keep going, transitioning in and out of the water, and not quitting. 'Cause you easily can, right? Anybody can at any time in any race. And so just that no quit attitude has to kind of build up over time by doing things like this out of your comfort zone. Because that was definitely not my comfort zone, that's for sure. Yeah. So just kind of throwing yourself in there and training up and working hard.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean,
do lots of gnarly events.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, keep pushing yourself. Yeah, I mean, the mental thing, I mean, during the race, Chipper and I kept talking about how just mentally you had to be really engaged. And that was in addition to just the physical demands, sort of the mental demands to stay in it so you don't trip, break a face, break a foot or something. I mean, there were hazards.
All over. Littered
Oh,
with
so
hazards.
many hazards. The entire time in my head, I didn't have time to think about anything else besides don't roll your ankle. Yeah. Don't roll your ankle. Like, please don't. Because there's so many times it was so easy to. And like sliding down rocks, just crazy things.
Yeah. But
did you guys fall at all?
No. So, I mean, our top goal was to just, one, obviously finish. Two, don't get injured trying to go too fast or something. And then, you know, we had some time guardrails that we were wanting to do, but we just wanted to have a really fun day out there. But yeah, I remember going on those first couple islands, and I'm sure you had the same experience about, I thought if it was raining, this would be like carnage out here. People would be slipping, like just broken bones would be all over the place, I feel.
Well, Nico's partner last year, I think they were on one of the first islands, and he fell and
broke his hand.
And broke his finger.
Yeah.
So and he told me that as we were running by, he's like, "Oh, this is the spot," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." I was like, "That can happen? Oh my gosh,
that's crazy."
He's like, "Just follow me, though."
So the whole time he was just like, "Be safe, Katie. Be safe," and I was like,
"Yeah, I mean that's probably definitely the goal that we certainly smashed, which was the stay upright goal. Definitely knocked that one out of the park because I mean that just ruins your whole day if you know we've interviewed a bunch of people for the show. We've mentioned it previously that like you know we've mythologized this race. We know a bunch of people that we've interviewed, people that have won it, people that have come in like the whole spectrum, and it's like a lot of the stories that we heard just like got like a different context. Where last year, for example, this French team that came in, third, I think. They came in third. First time there was a French team on the podium. We interviewed them. Basically, one guy broke his foot coming out of the pig swim, like climbing out of the pig swim, and they still finished on the podium. Like, you know, you're like, wow, you're crazy, dude. That's amazing that you found out you broke your foot. You still, but like after doing it, you're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. Wild.
It's so wild.
That is crazy.
So it was really surreal to kind of do it and kind of like almost as we're racing it, hear some, you know, relive some of these stories being in context. And I'm sure Nico, I mean, he has even more stories than we've heard. I mean, he's experienced it in so many different ways and more than the stories we've heard. So that must have been kind of, I mean, again, talk about stepping in shit. Like that's awesome partner to have.
Oh yeah, I didn't even have to talk the whole time because he just told me stories forever. And he's like, "Do you want me to keep going?" I was like, "Yes." I don't want to talk. You just tell me story after story. So I got to hear, you know, 8 years worth of swim run stories, which was really cool. Wow. Like I said, so lucky to have partnered with him. At first it was like, I thought he was a little bit worried about what was going to happen. And then as we trained the couple days, like 2 days leading up to the race, we went on a couple like trial runs. I think he built some confidence in me not being a total like awful athlete. So I was like, that's great. Yeah. And then we just like kind of had fun after the first half of the race after pushing really hard. And so, just got to hear so many stories.
Yeah, I mean, again, from his side of it, he's done this so many times, and here's someone who is obviously a very accomplished athlete, but coming to this thing first swim run, coming over here, like he knows what you're going to go through, right? So he's like, "Ooh, is this going to happen?" But sounds like after a couple trainings.
I mean, I don't blame him. I was like, if you're going to yell at me, just yell at me in French. I won't know what you're saying. So you can get mad and yell at me, and I'll keep going.
Love it.
Like it sounds nice getting you know,
yelled in French.
Yelled at in French. It's like it's so pleasant.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of pretty and fun as long as I don't know what he's saying.
That's hilarious. So you're thinking about doing Austin. What else is on your like? I'm just curious what your year looks like because it looks like insane, for lack of a better word, on the things that you do. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of like what's left for you this year and maybe what your plans are for next year?
Yeah, so usually the beginning of the years are more like strength-based competitions. There's still the endurance aspect, but when it comes to hybrid, it's more strength-heavy. So things like Go Ruck, some, you know, CrossFit comps, things like that. And then as we get into like the, you know, end of the summer, fall, that's when like the big ultras happen that I do, the 24-hour races. So coming up here, I have a competition called Battle Bunker. It's like brand new, but it's a very more so strength heavy competition. And then in November, I have World's Toughest Mudder again. Probably one of the most stacked women's field to date. So that one should be a blast. It's right outside of Pensacola. It's going to be just, 24 hours of some grueling work. So
Pensacola,
after
Florida?
Pensacola, Florida. So it's like an hour away. It's
be humid.
It's going to be flat, hot, and humid. But I did it last year running around the desert an hour outside of Vegas. So, I don't know which one's worse. I ran in like sand for 24 hours. But so that will be there in November, early November. And then I'll get kind of a break, recover from that because that takes quite a toll on the body. December, I might have another ultra. Otherwise, I don't have anything until the start of next year, which is kind of nice. So I kind of have a little bit of a downtime, a little bit of a deload, and then I'll pick things back up in January into the next year.
Awesome. What all for us uneducated like myself? The World's Toughest Mudder. Give us a breakdown. I have 24 hours. That's an incredible feat just right there. But obstacles are also involved, I hear.
Yeah, so Spartan also has a 24-hour race. It got canceled this year in Tahoe due to the fires that were out there a couple weeks ago, which was kind of a big bummer. That's why a bunch of friends of mine and I did the 250Ks back-to-back, the Say-Watch 50-50, which was really cool, and that's in Colorado. But the World's Toughest Mudder or Spartan, you have certain length courses. World's Toughest is always 5-mile loops, and then you kind of stop into a pit station, kind of like NASCAR. So you refuel, you get water, food, whatever, and then you go back out. Every lap has 20 or more obstacles. And then for World's Toughest, they're water-based. So there's some that have freezing cold water. When they've had it in places that have been cold, that people had to wear wetsuits. This year, that probably won't be a concern, which is nice. You're doing those 5-mile loops, and you basically, as long as you can, and then the winner is obviously at the end who has done the most in 24 hours. So last year, I did 90 miles, how many obstacles that is. And then, so that took first place for the female. And then the first place male was crazy. He did like 115 or so miles. So you just, you keep going. Some people like stop, take naps. But if you want to win, you probably spend about 5 minutes or less at each pit stop.
Damn.
That's incredible.
How many loops or how many miles did the second place woman do?
I think she got 85 miles.
Damn.
So she was essentially right behind me the whole time. So I could not stop until she stopped, which that didn't happen until, I think I ran for over 24 hours because if you start the last lap prior to hour 24, you can keep going.
Damn.
Just a little bit of bonus.
Yeah. I was like, all right, well, I guess we're going out again.
What's the point?
What's the difference at this point?
What was it going to be?
My knees would say otherwise, but
yeah, I'm sure.
Wow. Well, for some of that water, I'm actually thinking maybe a swimrun wetsuit might work, especially one of the super thin ones because it'll give you a little bit of warmth on the chest, like the Arc Vig. That might be a good.
Yep.
We have
or the thermal top. The thermal top might be ideal because last year, like if the first, I think top 3 for the males and the females didn't put their wetsuits on. Everybody else did because in the desert it still gets pretty cold. But if I kept going at a certain pace, every time I got in the water, I'd be cold for a little bit after, and then my body would heat back up. But this year might be a little bit different. It might be cold down there. They've had, years where it's been just like a random freeze. And so I might throw in like one of the thermal tops or something just in case, because that would be ideal.
Nice. Yeah, so you had a little bit, and that's something that catches a lot of beginners on swimrun a little bit is kind of the heat management, and obviously the longer the race, the more of an issue it can become. But it sounds like you already had a little bit of that experience to draw off of for ÖTILLÖ, which is I'm sure helpful.
Yeah, a little bit. I definitely, when I got out of the water after the pig swim, I was cold.
Yeah.
And one of the other swims that was longer, I got out and I was cold, and Nico knows everything. So he's like, unzip the wetsuit. Like, and I was like, really? I feel like that should keep me more warm. He's like, no, like breathe, like things like that. Like, so he helped me, give me a ton of tips and cues to what to do. But I definitely was cold just from being in the water for so long. And I didn't think that would happen because the water, it wasn't that cold. So I don't know if you guys got cold at all.
I mean, we thought the water was pretty nice, but yeah, towards the end, it's
But
just
I mean, definitely like got chilly at some point. I mean, I wasn't taking tons of stuff off, and I wasn't wishing I had a lighter wetsuit or anything. So I felt pretty.
Yeah, I mean, we started with arm sleeves.
Did you guys zip down? I didn't even know that was a thing.
Cabbing down.
I was only told I could zip it down, but people can take them off.
Yeah.
Cabbing down.
See, I didn't know that because I think it was going to take too much time. So he was like, "No."
Yeah, I mean, if
maybe for your first time ever, it might have taken a little bit.
I still suck at it. I'll be the first to admit I suck at cabbing down, and that's what I'm going to work on in the off season. I'm just going to be like wearing a swimmer wetsuit around the house and just like cap down drills, and then do like 10 burpees or something.
Have your
just
kids
like
time you.
Yeah.
Like just rip a bunch of wetsuits, like learning how to do it well.
That's perfect.
But yeah, like that's a whole thing, and it's super fast people, like they can cab up and cam down, and they do it. It's almost graceful the way they do it,
which is impressive because you have your jersey over top. So like for me, it was just like I unzipped and that was it.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know until the end when I was talking to some of the people. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can cap down," and I was like, "What is that?"
For next time, next time.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's definitely advanced swimmer lingo, cabbing up and cabbing down.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's not a way to get to the airport either, which is step one of confusion.
I had no idea.
Awesome. So, well, Katie, we really appreciate you taking some time and sharing your ÖTILLÖ experience and your swim run experience with us. You have a little bit of a coaching business. Obviously, you have a really awesome endurance year, and you're an amazing athlete. Where should people go to follow your life?
Well, thanks for asking because I'm terrible. I always forget to plug things at the end. But yeah, to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram, K80_night. And then I have a training company, online training company. So it's focused mostly on strength and endurance, but I have a couple other programs out there as well. And I do one-on-one personal training if you have, more specific training needs. But that's nighttimetraining.com. The link's also in my bio, so you can check me out
Great
there.
name.
Yeah.
And thank you guys for having me. You guys are legends in the sport of swim run. So this has been very fun talking to you. Oh, you are, for sure. I think it's the name. The name
is catchy.
My wife calls us micro-influencers.
I mean, technically.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it. That's probably true.
But hopefully we'll see you down in Austin.
Yep, that's the plan. And if you guys are there,
we'll be
come
there.
say hi.
We're going to have a little shakeout swim run on Saturday if you want to do the cliff jump and try cabbing up and cabbing down because Austin is going to be a little warm. So
yeah, for sure. I'll definitely try. I'll run around the house. I'll have my dog out. You'll time me.
Perfect.
Awesome. Katie, thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you.
I like what you did. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was good.
See ya.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. Thanks so much for listening to the show. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and leave a review, since that's the best way to help other people discover the show and the sport of swim run.
Sign up for a newsletter at lowtideboys.com. That's boys with a Z. And check out our meme page at the Low Tide Boys on Instagram. If you have any suggestions for the show or questions for us, send us a DM or an email at lowtideboys@gmail.com.
We'd like to thank Riding Easy Records for our show music, and of course our wives for their support and tolerance of all our swim run activities, podcast, and other stuff.
Yeah, other stuff.
Way
to keep it PG. Finally, you can support our efforts on Patreon. Until next time, get out there and go for a swim.
Go for a run.
Then another swim.
Then another run.
And then another swim.
And then another run.
And then just keep going until you're done.
Or maybe can't
And then
stop.